corporate America has fought back very hard against this wave of unionization that has taken place, particularly in the aftermath of the pandemic. And this was one of the ones that really kicked off things.
Are you on? Which side are you on?
Amazon was hit with, I believe it was 5 labor board complaints last week, and Adam wrote about it on our website, tvlr.fm. Like I said, I believe we are the only people in Alabama who have written about that, and it's really important stuff, even though it is coming. I mean, it's late. This is over a year after the latest election, and so it's very unfortunate that this couldn't have come earlier, but this is one of the consequences of underfunding our government agencies, right? I mean, this is because the NLRB has been flat funded since 2014, other than last year. And even last year, they didn't get a raise, that they didn't get an increase in funding even enough to match inflation, right? And so there's obviously still some major funding issues at the NLRB, and that affects their ability to quickly resolve cases. But last week, they did issue a complaint against Amazon, and here's what the NLRB said about those complaints. The complaints alleged that the employer promulgated and selectively enforced an unlawful off-duty access rule that banned employees from the employer's facilities when not on shift. Among other remedies, the complaints seek recession of the unlawful rule, mandatory training, and union access. The complaints also contain additional allegations specific to each locations. The complaints involved the Bessemer warehouse and the JFK 8 facility that was recently unionized by the Amazon Labor Union, as well as facilities in Joliet, Illinois, Covington, Pennsylvania, Swedesboro, New Jersey, and Kenosha, Wisconsin. And so here's what happened specific to Bessemer. The Region 10, Atlanta, Region 10 of the NLRB, issued a consolidated complaint covering 10 charges related to Amazon's BHM1 facility before and after a rerun election at the facility. The complaint alleges that prior to the quote-unquote off-duty access rule, the employer promulgated and maintained a rule prohibiting access more than 30 minutes before or after a shift. It further alleged removal and prohibition of pro-union materials, captive audience meetings, interrogation and polling, surveillance, threats of loss of pay and benefits, and threats of closure. An administrative law judge is scheduled to hear the case on September 25th. So that's going to be the next step in this, where a judge is going to take a look at the complaint by the NLRB.
Right.
This is obvious. Union elections are supposed to take place in, quote, laboratory conditions. I believe that's the name of the law. That's the wording that's used in the law. And when you are either creating new rules, which they're alleging that this off-duty access rule was a new rule, or selectively enforcing old rules that you did not previously enforce during a union election, that is not laboratory conditions, right? That is the employer trying to change the terrain of the election to make it more favorable to the boss.
Right.
Which is an issue, and I mean is election interference, is thwarting of democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and Amazon has a reputation of doing this, obviously. Their union busting activities have been pretty well publicized at this point. According to the NLRB, they actually have more than 180 open or settled unfair labor practice charges against them, or cases against them across 22 states. So that's, significant. I think worth noting that this is not something that's, unheard of with Amazon by any means. This appears to be their deliberate strategy and practice. And so that's worth noting. And a couple of other things there. The NLRB did put it out there that a complaint is not the same as a board decision. Right. So it's the first step in the regional office litigating the allegations after investigating the charges and finding merit to them. Right. So they have found merit to these charges and allegations. Now comes the hearings. As you mentioned, the upcoming hearing with the administrative law judge who can order make whole remedies. And that decision can then be appealed to the board and then to the federal appeals court.
Mm-hmm.
So it is quite the process. And, our workers down there in Bessemer have been fighting for a union for years now. So, it's been quite the journey.
Yeah. And just a reminder, the March 2022 election results were that 993 voted against joining the union and 875 voted for the union. So it was all in all a pretty close election. But additionally, there are more than 400 contested ballots that could swing the balance, actually, if they are opened. And so the way that process works is that when the ballots are being pulled, you look at the name before you look at whether or not they vote, how they voted, and you say, is this person eligible to vote or not? And if they are, then that envelope is opened and their secret ballot envelope is placed in another place so that it becomes separated from the name, and then you count the ballots separately so you don't know how they voted. But so as they were pulling out the names and seeing who is eligible and who is not, or trying to agree on that, my understanding, if I recall correctly, is that most of the contestations did come from the company saying that this person isn't eligible for whatever reason. Maybe they're actually a member of management. Maybe they are, maybe they're no longer employed at the Bessemer facility. Maybe they were employed too late because you had to have been working at a certain point to be able to vote in the election. So there are all sorts of reasons that a person might have accidentally voted, thinking that they were eligible, but they were not, and so they set aside these 400 ballots, and there is an investigation into whether or not they are eligible. And so at some point, presumably, some of these are going to be counted, and it's possible, kind of unlikely, that it could swing the balance, but it's possible. So so that's the latest on that. Really bad stuff. Bad stuff. Not good.
Yeah, and it's going to be important to see how it plays out, because it's really, corporate America has fought back very hard against this wave of unionization that has taken place, particularly in the aftermath of the pandemic. And this was one of the ones that really kicked off things, I think.
Yeah.
This campaign in Bessemer really was kind of a kicking off point for a lot of the labor movement in this country. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out with these complaints and just to what degree corporate union busting will be allowed and sanctioned by the United States government.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.